All right, everybody, welcome in. My name is Rachel Taylor. I'm our Director of Nursing Services here at Archer, and I'm really excited to hang out with you all over the next 30 minutes. But I just want to do a quick video audio check, make sure that you guys are seeing and hearing me okay. So let me know in the chat if you can see me, if you can hear me. And today we're really going to chat about finals. We'll talk a little bit about your NCLEX and something really cool. Stay till the end. If you don't have an Archer product yet, but you're thinking about it, I have a 20% off code for you all that I will share at the very end of the session. So super excited to kind of take the next 30 minutes to really talk about finishing the semester strong. So I want to know from who's joining today, who graduates in May? Where are you at in the nursing journey? How much longer do you have left? And then yes, at the end, I'll make sure you guys get that 20% off code that I know you're all waiting for. But let me know in the chat, where are you at in your nursing journey? You can in Zoom, just raise your hand if you want, or you can put it in a chat. Who is about to graduate, or how long do you have left? Maybe you've already graduated, it looks like. Amazing. Someone just got accepted to the program for the fall. Woo, that's so exciting. Taking my LPN on the 16th and starting Monday with the rest of RN. That's incredible. So we've got people at kind of every point of the journey. And today we're going to talk about how to finish the semester strong. I don't want you guys to go into finals week saying, well, I just need to survive. Let me tell you, when I was a nursing student, my goal every time it was finals was I just need to survive day by day. And what I found was I didn't go into finals with any strategy. But then years later, I became a nurse educator and I helped students at the first college I worked for, at a BSN program, face finals for the first time. And I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way because this is not it. There's got to be a more effective way to go through this. And yes, we can talk about the NCLEX too at the end. And so it was like, okay, how do we go through this process intentionally so that you don't reach that burnout, so that you don't feel that overwhelm? So today we're really going to apply that. And when I think about why it matters, is finals aren't just another test. The NCLEX, it's not just another test. They're really going to determine, did all the hard work pay off? Did all the late nights, all the cramming that you probably did, the lack of sleep, like, did it all pay off? And here's the thing, the difference between passing and excelling, it's not intelligence. It's not how smart you are. It isn't that you know content just a little better than your best friend. It's strategy. So when we think about testing, we want to focus on realistic ways to study smarter. It's not always about studying harder. It's about studying smarter and building that knowledge base. So let's talk about what actually gets in the way. And I want you guys to take a moment just to reflect on this. Like, think about yourself and think about what's gotten in the way from you being successful. This could be for maybe a class. It could be the NCLEX. It could be finals. It could be an exit exam. Think through all of the different things. What have been your barriers for success? Now, let's be honest. When I think of my own journey, I think of a lot of burnout. Anyone face burnout right now? Whether you're prepping for finals, your NCLEX exam, maybe something in the middle. Anyone feeling any burnout? Let me know in the chat. Seeing yeses. Okay. Burnout is really real. I'll be honest, we used to joke that, hey, maybe nursing wasn't for us. We could do this instead. And it was because we were burnt out when I was a student. I had a baby in nursing school, and I really struggled at times to see the other side of it. But what I will tell you, looking at it from the educator perspective, it was the best thing I ever did for my family. It was the best thing I ever did for my career. But I had to push through that burnout. So how do we do that? We have a plan. We make sure that we're consistent with that plan and we prevent the burnout from happening, because it's when we're in it that we feel stuck. It's when we have that information overload. We're studying 8+ hours a day. We're memorizing. That's not the effective way to study. The other thing that can happen is you're in a time crunch. Okay. Anyone feel a time crunch right now? Someone said, yeah, my husband says I study way too much. He's already an RN. What happens in that situation is we get stuck in this comparison game and we start to look at, well, they did it. Why am I not there yet? This person did it. And I know that I have that knowledge base. What I want you to get to the point of, if you are overstudying, if you are to this kind of spiral point where you're burnt out, you're overwhelmed, is I want you to show up for just a 45-minute study session. And when you're done, I want you to ask yourself, well, what did I learn from this? What were my key takeaways? How can I apply this? What was the benefit I got out of the session? For those of you that may be overstudiers for your NCLEX or for your finals exams, you may find that you walk away with no key takeaways. And that tells me that you're not building, you're instead focusing on memorization, where I want you to focus on making connections. Because when you make connections and you truly start to understand, it doesn't matter what the question asks you, you're able to make an educated choice, an educated answer, because you've got a strong foundation. You can make those connections. And the last thing that kind of gets in the way of this success is test anxiety. Does anyone here struggle with test anxiety? I had significant test anxiety through nursing school. Even when I got my master's in nursing education, my test anxiety was through the roof, guys. I can't tell you how bad it was. And the funny part was, even when I was getting my master's in nursing education, I was doing this kind of work where I talked about test anxiety. I knew the ins and outs of test anxiety, and yet it still impacted me. So don't feel alone if this is part of your journey or part of the struggle, because you are not alone in this. But what we want to work on is tools to overcome that test anxiety. Because I don't know about you all, but for me, if I'm really anxious about something, do you know what I don't do? I don't do the task that I'm anxious about. And I'm sure I shouldn't say that. My employer at Archer here is probably like, wait, what? But it's hard for me to do that task. It's hard for me to get started on it because I'm overwhelmed by it. But do you know what happens? The second I get started, I start to feel better. When I break it up into doable tasks, I start to feel less overwhelmed. I start to feel that anxiety leave me. Now, there are a ton of strategies for test anxiety. We've got lots of YouTube videos on it. I would check them out if it's something you struggle with, but it's something to be aware of, because the goal, it's not to study more. It's to study efficiently so that you can be successful. So what does study smarter even mean? Like, if we were to put it into practice, what does that look like? Well, I could sit here, I could put on, Morgan's lecture. She's our main lecturer, our chief nursing officer is in our on-demand. I'm going to give it as an example. And I could sit on my phone and I could listen to her lecture, and I could be also like texting or maybe watching a TikTok here and there. That's how some of us are studying, guys. And let's be honest, we all can get distracted by a TikTok here and there. But that's passive. If I am going through the motions passively, I am not going to be successful. So how do we change that? We focus on active recall. So I'm watching Morgan lecture and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to pause after each segment. And this was the key point. This is what I need to know for my exam. This is what's important when I'm in practice. And we change it from, oh, I'm just listening and playing some games on my phone to, oh, so this is what these connections are, and this is how I make them. Yeah, some of you are like, I want to delete TikTok. I don't use TikTok personally. I don't even want to open that rabbit hole. I do use it for work, but that's it, just when I do these videos. But other than that, I'm not a TikTok person. If you find that those distractions are affecting you, eliminate those distractions for a while, because you want to be focused on things that help you do better, not things that are barriers for you. Then we have spaced repetition. If you study something today and you're not getting it, you're getting it wrong in one line, right? Hey, here's the key concept. I need to get this correct, whether it's on your finals, whether it's on your NCLEX. And then do you know what you do? 72 hours later, 48 to 72 hours later, you go study it again. Because when you go study it again, 48 to 72 hours later, you're using what's called active recall. If you ever think about farm is my favorite example because it's the hardest, okay? Let's all go back to farm. Who just hated farm class? I'm doubting any of you loved it, but I have a coworker that loves farm. But I really disliked farm when I was in nursing school. And the reason why was because we had test after test after test after test, and I never had enough time to actually study. So I was just memorizing everything. But you know what happened when I got to finals? I panicked because I just memorized everything. I didn't actually remember anything. I had to relearn all that material. Spaced repetition prevents you from needing to relearn everything. Spaced repetition is what continues to allow you to build and build on your concepts so you're constantly growing. We don't have to start over at that foundation. And that's what makes the difference when you are prepping. You really want to focus on those weak areas, but you also want well-rounded prep as well. Because if you didn't review something for 16 weeks, the length of a semester, or let's say 6 weeks for the length of an NCLEX prep, you could have missed it. You could have missed those key details. And lastly, my favorite thing for you to do is the teach back method, okay? The teach back method is where you explain something out, okay? So for example, let's say you watch heart failure, then you're going to teach back, you're going to explain heart failure. And you're maybe thinking, well, Rachel, I live by myself. I don't have anyone I can do teach back. It could be a kiddo. It could be a significant other. It could be a plant. It could be literally anybody, anything. It doesn't matter. The fact is that you're able to verbalize it out loud. One of the biggest differences I see in students that are successful in nursing school and on the NCLEX and students that are not is they're able to explain concepts out loud instead of going, if I saw a question, I'd know how to answer it, but I don't know how to explain it. Work to explain concepts out loud, and it will be a key differentiator for you. So let's talk about NCLEX thinking, how to actually think for your NCLEX, because this is how you should be thinking for every test you ever take. You want to think what keeps your client the safest. Now, number one, we have ABCs, but there is something that actually comes before airway. Does anyone know what it is? What comes before airway? You're maybe thinking, wait, what? There's something before airway? Okay, someone said safety, not necessarily, not what I'm looking for, but good guess. Someone said nothing. Massive hemorrhage. If your client is bleeding out all over, and I don't just mean like they're bleeding a little, they have a massive hemorrhage, you got it. It actually will come before the airway because once that blood is gone, we cannot just put it all back in, right? So massive hemorrhage first, then we follow our ABCs. We use things like Maslow's hierarchy of needs because Maslow's is going to start at the bottom where we focus on what? Anyone remember that foundational need? Our physiological needs, right? Food, water, stabilize vital signs. And we always want to make sure we eliminate distractors. The NCLEX, and nursing school questions, right? It's not just, well, which option is right? It's which option is the most right, which means there may be several options that are correct. And you have to focus on what is the most right? What makes the most sense for this answer? Now, if the client is not safe, if you're like, there's no safety here, address the safety concern. Kind of the key thing here, though, is if my client is at risk, if there's a problem with my client, do not leave the client. You always will remain with them. Nursing school questions, NCLEX questions, it doesn't matter. If there is a problem with your client, do not do something that takes you away from the client. Now, let's talk about time management. Who feels like they have really strong time management in their finals prep and their NCLEX prep right now? Who's like, yep, I got it. I don't need anything on this. I've got it down. Who here is like, Rachel, I could use a little support understanding what successful time management might look like when it comes to prepping for my finals, for the NCLEX. Anyone in that boat? Okay, I'm seeing like, yes, This is what I need. This is what I'm looking for. I recommend if you are an active learner, you learn by doing, you learn by moving, that you only study for 25-minute blocks. And you're probably thinking 25 minutes, that's nothing. 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. The reason why is you need to keep your brain busy or you won't learn super effectively and you're going to need more breaks. Now, I am that type of learner, but I'm also a visual learner. I have found that my max for studying is about 50 minutes, okay? So I know that about myself. So I'm going to do time blocks. Now, if we're looking specifically at finals, what I would do is I would break my time blocks into the different classes that I have my finals for. Med Surg, Pharm, Patho. But I can also use this same strategy, guys, if I am prepping for my NCLEX. Because what you allow yourself to do then is you allow yourself that spaced repetition. And what I like to do to end each day is just to take some time to review. What did I get out of today? What was the benefits of today? Did I miss anything? Was there something I need to go back to? But what matters more than anything is that you're consistent, because consistency is what leads to success. Now, if you're both visual and hands-on, find that time range that works the best for you. For me, 50 minutes is the best, but I have worked with people that 50 minutes feels like eternity and 25 minutes is better. But my biggest request to all of you is that you put your phone on do not disturb. You put it away, you put it out of sight. Now, anyone here have kiddos or maybe work a couple jobs or even a job while you're prepping for these exams? Is anyone in that kind of boat? Then you have extra things that are taking your time. It becomes more challenging for you if you have those extra responsibilities, a job, multiple jobs, kids. I told you guys at the start, I had a baby in nursing school and I almost quit because of it. But what I found was that despite having extra roadblocks, despite having extra challenges with time management, it was still doable, but it's about how we change our mindset to work around it. So maybe for you, an 8 to 5 p.m. study schedule isn't going to work. Maybe you need yours to be what mine used to be was 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. and then 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's what my study day looked like. It was 5 hours, but it was 2 in the morning, 3 in the evening, and that's what it looked like every day. It doesn't have to look the same as everyone on here. There's 70 of you on TikTok. There's 26 on Zoom. It might look different from person to person, and that is okay. But find the time blocks that work for you and make sure you have them at least 5 days a week. If you are not prepping for your tests at least 5 days a week, you want to review that. You want to rethink that. Because again, it goes back to that consistency. And one of the best ways to prep for any exam is to do daily practice questions. So right now, if you were to tell me, if you answer questions every day, would you say yes or would you say no? And just a reminder, I'll have that discount code at the end if you're interested in Archer. I'll go over kind of how to use that code. Okay, some of you are like, yep, I answer questions every single day, and others of you are like, no. Then my next follow-up question is, maybe you answer questions every day, but are you reviewing the rationales? Are you asking yourself, this is why this one is right, and this is why these are wrong? Because what you're going to find is that when you start to think through that, when you start to really think, okay, this is why this makes sense, and this is why this doesn't, that's what levels you up. That's what levels up your strategy. So what I want you to get used to doing is, yes, you're answering questions almost every day of the week, but you're also going through those rationales. Now, the thing I don't want you to do, and I see students do this all the time, they write down every single word of a rationale. Is anyone doing that? I probably shouldn't call you all out, but I want to know, is anyone currently doing that? When I tutor students, I personally tutor students, this is one of the things they tell me really often that they're doing, that they're writing everything out. If you are still using that strategy, stop. You need to write it in your own words to the point of what is the key concept I need to know. Keywords is great, but make sure that you're doing it in your own words. Because if you rewrite Archer's questions word for word, you're just using my words or you're using one of our other item writers' words, right? And so I want you to be able to use it in your words so that it makes sense to you, because that's what truly matters. And if you're stuck in a class, let's say you're in nursing school and you're like, I struggle with patho, I'm struggling with pharm, I'm struggling with critical care, adult health. That's why at Archer, we have Archer Review for nursing school. We have those courses that you can take along with you as you go through each course in nursing school or as you're prepping for finals, because we want to make sure you have the resources you need to focus on here's what truly matters. Now, when we think about retention, how do we actually make this content stick? These are my top 4 things I look at. Number 1, mnemonics. Mnemonics can be really, really helpful, especially if you're someone who really works well with visual cues. Mnemonics can be great. Personally, what helps me the most is a picture. Sounds really basic, I know, but when I'm anxious, I cannot remember words, but I can remember a picture. So if I know exactly what that client will look like when they have a disease process, or I know exactly what happens when this med occurs, or when this occurs, let's say someone's in heart failure and we do XYZ, if I know what that looks like, if I can picture it, then I'm able to answer test questions on it. And so it's about kind of changing that thought process. We've already talked about this over and over again. The 3rd thing is repetition. And 4th is clinical connections. Now, this can be really helpful, but it can also be challenging. Anyone here work as an LPN before you became an RN, or worked as a CNA before you became an LPN or an RN? Anyone in that boat? Making real life scenarios, like applying to those, can be really helpful. But have you ever found that it can actually be more challenging? Because how you did it in practice actually looks different than how you are going to answer it for the NCLEX. Yeah, Danielle was like 100%. This is so true. I think of the LPN scope of practice. This is like the biggest one. For the NCLEX, it's pretty limited, but the states I've worked, it's been pretty advanced. And so it can be hard because you apply that same knowledge and it can actually cause you to get the question wrong. So I do think clinical connections are very important. Real life examples are essential, but make sure you always come back to what is the scope for the NCLEX, assuming all states in Canada have the same scope, because those are the main places that are taking the NCLEX, right? Now, we've talked about burnout. We've talked about stress. I want to dive a little deeper into this. Sleep is huge. Now, I'm going to be honest with you all. When I was in nursing school, if I got 4 hours of sleep, I was content. 5 was my golden number, and 6 was like, wow, that was the best sleep of my life. So I understand if sleep isn't doable. But what I will tell you is when you sleep, it actually fuels your focus, it fuels your memory, and it helps you emotionally. Another kind of big thing about me is when I'm really tired, I cry. I don't know why. I get emotional if I'm super tired. And guess what? When you're emotional like that, you can't handle stress. So one of you is like, oh, I sleep 3 to 4 hours. Let me tell you, not sufficient. The more you figure out to prioritize sleep, the more it is going to help you be able to show up intentionally. The other thing is take breaks. Is anyone here studying for like 6+ hours straight? Anyone doing that? Okay, some of you are like, no, but some of you are like, yes. Take breaks. No one here should be studying any more than 8 hours, but really 6 is like the cap in my mind. I find if you're studying more than that, you're typically not getting good takeaways from it. And so what I want us to focus on is like, okay, how can we make the most of the time that we have? Because if you think about it, we cannot pour from an empty cup. This is like one of my favorite things. I posted this on LinkedIn probably like 2 years ago at this point, but like you can't pour from yourself if you are empty. So how do you fill your cup so you can pour from it? Because what happens is if you don't, you go on empty, and that's when you get to the point of burnout. That's when you get to the point of questioning and giving up. And that's not what I want you to do. An amazing Jelly just came on TikTok and said passed thanks to Archer. That's great. Thank you for letting us know. Would love to hear what you thought of the product. If it was helpful, if it was not helpful. Now, someone said, aren't you supposed to do about 100 questions a day? At Archer, it kind of depends on the day. I really like to start students off with a lower amount and build up to over that 100. The reason I like to do that is then you get those good routines down as you slowly build your schedule. It's not just do 100 a day. Because if I just say do 100 questions per day, what happens? You don't go in there with integrity, okay? You don't go in there with intention. You don't go in there thinking, oh, this is what I need to do. This is where I need to focus. And so I want you to go into those 100 questions with a game plan, with strategy. So if that means you only get 50 questions done, that's better. I would rather you focus on doing it well than getting through the volume. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, here's our big strategies. This is how I want you to answer questions. Read the question carefully. Don't rush it. You miss a key word, you could get the whole question wrong, especially if they're looking for false answers. Then the second step is to reword the question in your own words, short, sweet, to the point. And then you're going to look for keywords. Does it tell you to prioritize? Does it tell you you're looking for those wrong questions? But the biggest thing is to not overthink, to trust your instinct, and to not change your answer. Believe in the knowledge that you have. Do I have anyone here that changes their answer a lot? Okay, we've got someone testing in 6 days. Amazing, using Archer. Okay, a lot of you are like, yes, I changed my answer. Even if you change your answer and you get it right some of the times when you change it, I don't want you to change it, and here's why. When you change your answer, you tell yourself that I'm not able to trust my testing instinct. And do you know what will happen on your NCLEX? Do you know what will happen on your finals? And I have no doubt that this will happen. What's going to happen is you are going to not know the answer. Amazing. Someone else just popped on TikTok and said, used Archer to pass my NCLEX RN. But you might not know the answer. And do you know what happens to us in an exam when we don't know the answer? We panic. We start to panic and we say, oh my gosh, I don't know the answer. Anyone do this? Am I the only ones? We spiral. Where instead we should say, what connections can I make to help me get to the right answer? What connections can I make to get close to the answer? And when we trust our gut, when we trust our instinct, it's not that we get it right 100% of the time, but we learn to reiterate our instinct when we get it wrong. And it strengthens us as test takers. It strengthens us as nurses. And that's what's important. Because if you're constantly questioning your judgment, that follows you into practice. So I want you to trust your instinct. I want you to trust your gut. And if it leads you the wrong way, recorrect and move on, and that's okay. So as you move into your finals week focus, or as you move into your NCLEX, I want you to be reviewing your material, but reinforcing it, practicing it, and make sure that you tell yourself that you are capable, you are worthy, you can do this. Because it is about so much more than perfection. You know, when I think of us as nurses, I feel like we got it wrong along the way. We started focusing on perfection. Nursing school really taught me that I needed to be perfect. And I work with students all the time that feel this. We have this need for perfection, but the problem is we set ourselves up for this unrealistic standard. And what happens when we're in this unrealistic standard? It is not possible to meet it, and we feel like we are not reaching what we're supposed to. But instead, if we change this to, I'm going to work to see progress every day, we end up 10 times further than we ever would have been. Because when we focus on perfection, we steal our ability to reach even higher. And so I want you to really think about, how do I change my focus today? How do I change it from working to be 1% better every day instead of working toward perfection? Because that is an unattainable goal. As nurses, I vote that we shoot for excellence, because excellence is what I want my nurse to be. I don't need my nurse to be perfect. They're a human being. They're flawed. We all are. But I do need them to focus on excellence. And that's the kind of nurse workforce that I want to continue to see be built. So if you've put this big standard on yourself of perfection, just remove it. Tell yourself, I'm going to do the best I can every day. And if you do the best you can, if you always show up with intention, you're going to be successful. I have no doubt. And a lot of this takes discipline as well as motivation at times. But it's about what do we do when we're not motivated that matters. Because I'm going to be honest, guys, even as an educator, am I motivated every day to do the max of my capabilities? No. And this is when discipline takes over. This is when discipline says to me, hey, you have to show up. Why? Because other people are counting on me to show up. You guys are counting on me to show up. The students I tutor each week count on me to show up. And so this is where discipline is going to matter more than motivation. Do you guys feel motivated every single day when you go to study? Let me know in the chat. Thanks for those that have shared the live and for those that have given us a follow. You guys are like, no one feels motivated to strive for 100% every single day. And that is where discipline matters. That is where you answer the 10 questions that day when you wanted to do nothing, but you did 10 because 10 was better than nothing. It is when you show up because you are tired, you had to work an extra hour, but you've got your NCLEX or your finals in 2 weeks, and you've got to keep prepping and reiterating. And when you show up with intention. What I really like to remember is, telling ourselves that we can do this. Anyone have self-doubt today that they're going to be able to do this? Anyone a little worried like, hey, I've got a repeat test coming up. I'm anxious about it. I'm a little worried about where this is going to go. What if I'm unsuccessful? What happens is we start to fill ourselves with these negative self-talk. But what if we changed it, guys? What if we changed it to I am capable, I am going to show up, I am going to do my best? Because when we show up, when we do our best, and we fill ourselves with this positive self-talk, what happens? We take that negative narrative out of the picture. That is what we strive to do here at Archer. I don't want you guys filled with self-doubt, because self-doubt, it keeps you from ever reaching your full potential. And I say this from the most love and the experience that I had as a student. I was so afraid to fail that I never let myself reach full success. Can you imagine if you took that barrier down? Remove the fear of failure, because guess what, guys? When I fail, I learn the most. So let's remove that barrier, that fear of failure, because then we can actually reach those goals. We can reach even further than we ever thought. We let go of that perfection. We let go of that fear of failure. There's nothing wrong with failing here and there, as long as we come back stronger the next time. Okay? I want you, whatever test you have coming up, I want you to be focused just on that test, not what's happened before, not what's coming next or tomorrow, but what's right in front of you. And if you do the best you can on every single question, whether it is a final, whether it is your NCLEX or some other test, maybe you're trying to get into nursing school, that is good enough. It is good enough for me, and I want it to be good enough for you, because that is how you truly are going to be successful. If you guys ever need any help, we do offer tutoring. We've got private tutoring. We've got small group tutoring. And these are the kinds of things we cover at Archer, because it's about more than just answering test questions. It's about more than that. We have to focus on the mindset. We have to focus on strategy. We have to bring those things together in order to be successful. Now, we have a really good Nurses Week sale. I think it's one of the bigger ones we do in the year, 20% off our program. I'm going to go ahead and put the link in TikTok. I know TikTok doesn't love links, but if you go to that, you can see our Nurses Week sale, 20% off. Amazing. Someone else just dropped on TikTok and said, I passed my NCLEX using Archer. Feels so amazing. And that's what I have for the goals for each and every one of you. You can get there, and it's going to take hard work, but that hard work is so worth it. All right, I'm going to put this link in all the different places. Make sure I got it everywhere. Are there any questions? I know I went a little over. But I've dropped that link in for you guys. Feel free to copy and paste that link if you're able to. I know it's kind of weird. TikTok doesn't let you copy and paste very well. But there is a 20% off code if you go to that link. You can watch a little bit about my journey, becoming an educator, as well as several of my team members if you're interested in that. But congrats to all of you, those that have passed. And we're rooting for each and every one of you that are still on the journey. If you need anything, our email is nursing@archerreview.com. You are able to email us. You will get typically either Jennifer Bonner, our nursing manager, or myself in a response, but feel free to reach out anytime. We want to see each and every one of you be successful. And if you have an extra roadblock, you have an extra question, you're not sure on something, just ask us. We want to see you get there, and we're more than willing to answer any questions. But I hope you guys have an amazing Monday. Have a successful week studying, being consistent, keep showing up for yourself. And I am rooting for you on your finals and your upcoming NCLEX exam. Bye, everybody. I hope you have a great day.